Before I get into this video about Vontaze Burfict, it should be mentioned that I hate Vontaze Burfict. I mean, obviously as a person, I've never met him, so I can't speak to how he is as an actual person, but on the field, he's one of the most unlikable players that has ever played. I mean, honestly, I don't have a huge problem with guys who play with an edge and maybe play up way to that line, but the fact of the matter is, this guy has crossed the line on several instances. I try my best to not be too hard on these guys. I think every now and then you will just make a dirty play just because football is a physical sport. Sometimes you will cross that line, especially if you are one of those players who often plays up to the line. But when you're at the point where you're actually risking other people's careers just because you want to play with an edge, that's when I have a problem. So when he had a bit of a down year with Cincinnati, I think a lot of us were kind of saying, okay, great, he'll just be out of the league and that'll be the end of it. And when the Oakland Raiders signed him, I think a lot of people wanted to say, oh, they're not even getting a good player anyways. However, it has to be mentioned that they definitely are still getting a valuable asset. And I should also be very clear on something. I'm not going to act like I'm morally superior above anybody. I hate some of the things that Vontaze Burfict has done on the field, but I don't know him as a person. I can't speak to him. Maybe he's just made mistakes. Some people are saying that the Raiders shouldn't go out and sign Vontaze Burfict. I disagree. The guy's a good football player. You're trying to sign good football players. Go out and sign a good football player. Either the NFL should say this guy's no longer allowed to play in the league and then he should be out of the league, or teams should be able to sign him. It's one of those two things in my opinion. It shouldn't be up to the teams to not sign a good player. And it should be very clear here, because we all know those talking heads that act like they're morally superior. I am not. I'm going to say that again. I said when I made my Kareem Hunt video that I am not in the business of deciding who is a good person or who isn't. But I can say I don't like certain things on the field, and Vontaze Burfict has done things on the field that I don't like. Again, it's kind of a weird situation because I am making a video on a guy who has made plenty of dirty hits over the years, so I feel like it would be kind of weird if I didn't even bring that up and didn't say my opinion on that at all. But I also personally just don't feel like it's my place to judge other people, so that's kind of where I'm conflicted here. I think you could make an argument that Roger Goodell should just kick him out of the league. However, Roger Goodell hasn't done that. You could make an argument that the Raiders shouldn't sign him, but I disagree, and I'll show you why I disagree. One of the things I feel like Burfict does very well is positioning. This is a guy who always is in good position, it seems like. I mean, he's played in the league for a while, and obviously as a linebacker, positioning is important, and he does a very good job of staying in position, and this one will be a good example of that. It's going to be a cover 3 zone, and he's in charge of covering that flat on the top half of the screen. So it seems pretty simple, right? But what's going to happen here is there's actually not going to be a single Dolphin who's going to run up in his direction. As you see right now, he's pretty much all alone. So what's he going to do? Well, he's going to step in. I mean, that's where Ryan Tannehill is, that's where the ball is, and there is an eligible receiver blocking, so maybe they could dump it off in that direction. Nobody's directly around him, so might as well move a little bit in, because what's going to happen anyways? And now as you see right there actually is a Miami Dolphin who's going to look over and try to make a catch. So when Tannehill hits him, Burfict is able to run over and instantly make a tackle. I mean, that's just knowing your job there and knowing where you need to be in terms of position. Burfict might not be as talented as he once was, but this guy still has a lot of talent, and he's just a smart player. He knows what he needs to do most of the time. And also as a linebacker, that can help you in both the passing game or the rushing game. Like on this one, what's going to happen is Miami's going to double team that interior lineman right there, then the left tackle will move off the double team to move up to try to block Burfict. And the tackle's actually going to do this perfectly. He finishes off that double team very quickly and gets in perfect position to try to block Burfict. However, notice what Burfict is going to do. I mean, as of right now, the tackle is in perfect position. However, Burfict is basically going to twist his body. Doing this does a couple of things. A, it means that Burfict kind of loses positioning and can't really control where he's going at this point. Burfict is essentially stuck. However, that's okay because so is that tackle. There's not enough room for the halfback to simply just run by him, so because of that, Burfict is able to close that gap and make the tackle simply because of that one quick move. It's once again just being a veteran and knowing what you're supposed to do. It's just knowing your role. That's one of the things that Burfict does very well. He's a very smart player. I mean, this guy's played 7 full seasons now. I think a lot of people forget he's actually only 28 years old. Although, of course, it's kind of one of those things of it's not the years, it's the mileage. I mean, Burfict's missed at least 5 starts in each of the past 5 seasons, so that's definitely not great. He's definitely had some trouble staying healthy, and I'm sure people are saying, gee, I wonder why. But there's no denying on the field, this guy is a very talented player, and this one will be another example of that. That's where he is on the screen, and the receiver all the way at the top half of the screen is going to be running a quick crossing route just right over there, right underneath Burfict. And so as you see right now, that receiver is a little bit open, but again, this is zone coverage, this isn't man coverage. So he's open, but he's open underneath all of the zones, so there's not really a ton of space for him. That's where Burfict is on the screen, and he's actually not going to worry about him at all, because he's going to say, hey, that Miami Dolphin is running over to the bottom half of the screen, I'm going to let my other teammate take care of it. That guy is in charge of covering a zone further to the bottom half of the screen, so he's going to be the one that Burfict is going to trust to try to make this play. And it's the right play call. You do have to trust your teammates, however, it's not actually going to work out this time. His teammate missed a tackle. So now it's going to become a foot race, but look at how Burfict is able to take such a good angle that he's able to get over there and basically force that Miami Dolphin to then cut back inside and get tackled. I mean, that could be a lot more yards if he sort of cut more further to the bottom half of the screen and then wasn't able to make that play. But Burfict took the perfect angle, and that's what resulted in not a big gain, despite the fact that there was a broken tackle and it could have been a big gain. That wasn't him making a great play, that was damage control, but he did a very good job in damage control. Now, one flaw I have noticed in Burfict's game is, especially in coverage, he can have a tendency to not be aggressive enough. And maybe to be clear, I should probably explain what I mean by Burfict isn't aggressive enough, because I think that's not something people say too often. But I'm strictly talking in terms of coverage here. Basically, this play will show you what I mean. It's going to be a cover 2 zone, and that's where Burfict is on the screen. So as you see, he's in charge of covering that zone, sort of closer to the top half of the screen, but what Pittsburgh is going to do is actually have a receiver basically open right now. Burfict sees that receiver and kind of realizes what's going on, but he's going to hesitate before actually going over there, and that allows Roethlisberger to have enough time to hit his receiver. You know, even in that first play I showed you, that was a bit of a positive where he realized he had to move in. It also took him an extra half second that I thought before actually doing that. It didn't really matter too much, so that's why I didn't bring it up in that play, but it is something I have noticed with Burfict in several plays. You know, one of the things that makes that Jacksonville Jaguars defense so good is they're totally okay with having guys abandon their assignment if necessary. Yeah, every now and then you will get burned and give up a big play, but the idea is that it's going to be so tough for you to actually get plays, and because the league is so offensive driven now, it's more important to get a stop than it is to play it safe sometimes. But one thing about Burfict is that while he can be a little bit timid, especially in the zone, that doesn't mean that he can't be effective once he realizes what's going on. Like on this one, it's going to be a cover 2 zone, and that's where he is on the screen, so he's in charge of covering the middle of the field. Pretty simple. And this is actually important because Pittsburgh actually has a receiver running right over there, past him, basically trying to get into that gap in coverage in between him and the safeties. And that tight end is actually going to easily just walk up and get pretty well open, right? Well, kind of. I mean, a little bit, but Burfict knows his range, essentially. He knows how far he can get up and how quickly, so what he's doing is he's watching Roethlisberger, and he's kind of baiting Roethlisberger a little bit. The second Roethlisberger does make this throw, Burfict is able to leap up and knock the ball away. So again, those are the positives of Vontaze Burfict, but there are other things that have to be mentioned, and that's the fact that this guy definitely plays with an edge, if you want to call it that. There's definitely guys that have played for my teams that I'm not huge fans of, but you know, I still want them to do well because I want my team to do well. I don't know. I'm not one for social commentary. I mean, you can watch ESPN if you want any of that. Let's just talk X's and O's. But again, the reason why I'm bringing this up again is because this actually affects X's and O's. This actually affects what's going on tape. When I say Burfict plays with an edge, I don't just mean that he will occasionally do something very dirty. I mean, this guy literally will often do things that are a little bit dirty, and in my opinion, I don't actually have a problem with that. I think sometimes having kind of a guy who's going to just be a pest can actually be a benefit to your team as long as you don't cross the line. Having one of those guys that just plays up to the line without crossing the line can be beneficial, and Burfict at times can be that guy when he's not going too far. Like on this play, Cleveland has a receiver running right there, and that's where Burfict is on the screen, but take a look at what's going to actually end up happening here. As of right now, that receiver is looking like he's going to be in great shape to try to get open, and Baker Mayfield is going to throw it in his direction. But notice what Burfict is going to do here. He's going to just kind of grab that Brown's hand a little bit and basically just pull him down and knock the ball away. Just a little bit of contact, nothing too major. That's kind of the knowing what you can get away with type of thing. He knows there's no refs anywhere in his area, so he says, hey, I can get away with this one. Even if a ref does see it, they might not call it because it's kind of borderline whether it should be a penalty anyways. Occasionally you will get burned and you will get that called a penalty, but oftentimes you won't, and so it can be a good decision sometimes. I'm not saying it's something you should do, I'm not saying it's something I would recommend for a young player to do, but I am saying that there definitely are some benefits if it is something you do. I mean, you can't deny that. You can't deny what's on tape, and that was a beneficial play for Burfict to create some contact before the ball actually got to the receiver. There was also this next one where that's where Burfict is on the screen, and once again there will be a quick crossing route right over there. So once this ball is snapped, the Browns receiver definitely does have some room to try to run here, but notice what Burfict is going to do. He's essentially just going to run over and whack him, and now, in fairness, this play is actually still going to work out okay. That Browns receiver now has some space, Mayfield hits him, and he's able to pick up a decent amount of yards, so you probably think, okay, well that was stupid, right? I mean, all he ended up doing was made positioning just that much more difficult for himself. If he just ran straight to the bottom half of the screen, he probably had a better chance of cutting off that angle, but he would tell you that that's not the reason he did it. And I mean, again, agree or disagree, I personally won't judge you either way. But what he would tell you would be that he wasn't actually trying to make sure that he would have good positioning whatsoever. That was early in the game, and he's basically trying to send the Browns a message of, hey, when you run those routes, prepare to get hit. I don't know if I think it's the best idea, especially because, I mean, if the Browns player fell down, that probably almost definitely would have been a penalty. Refs aren't always likely to call those types of things, but they could, and again, you're putting yourself at risk to get a bad penalty, and that can come back to bite you in the worst of ways, as we saw with that playoff game and the infamous Antonio Brown concussion game. Like, this one will be very simple. This one's not really even going to be a breakdown, but basically just I'm showing you something. The fullback right over there is basically going to be running straight into Vontaze Burfict, but look at the absolute punishment Burfict is going to give to that fullback. Burfict isn't even trying to make this play. He's just going to try to hurt that fullback, and I mean, he definitely does that, and also ends up making the play anyways. Again, I have a feeling what he would tell you is that, yeah, I'm just making sure that fullback doesn't want to block me next time. Maybe next time he comes in a little bit timidly and I'm able to make the tackle easier. And again, I won't judge you, agree or disagree. Football is a violent sport. That is a part of the game in a sense. I think people who have played might say, yep, that's absolutely what you have to do. You have to make sure that you can be violent and make sure you're the biggest guy around. Use fear as a weapon, essentially, whereas other guys would say, no, you don't need to do that. Personally, I think I've said there is a line. I'm not exactly sure where that line is, but I think as long as you don't cross the line, I'm okay with it. I think these plays are the ones where I would say are kind of right up to that line, but not quite over it yet, so I'm personally okay with these, but it's the ones where he's actually going out of his way to hurt people that I have a problem with. That's the ethics side of it, but from the actual football side of it, there's actually an interesting debate there as well. I mean, is it worth it to try to get in your opponent's heads and make them not really want to block you as much, but you're also giving up some yards on some of these plays? Is it worth it to do that, or should you just say, you know what, I'm just going to make sure I make the play? And again, I don't really know. I see both sides. I find it very interesting, but I definitely know where Burfict stands on that discussion. And one last play, it's going to be a cover 3 zone, and basically it's going to be a screen pass, where that Broncos player is going to run out to the bottom half of the screen, and then the Broncos receiver is going to run out and try to block that Bengal who's right over there. And so, assuming everything goes according to plan, actually the closest Bengal here could end up being Vontaze Burfict who's over there. It'll actually either be him or the Bengal who's in charge of covering that bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And so as you see right out the bat, this play is working out well, and the receiver is easily open and able to make a catch. So now it's basically how many yards can you pick up before one of those two Bengals is able to run over and make a tackle. And it actually is going to be the Bengal who's over to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen that is going to be the first one to initiate contact, but now take a look at what Burfict is going to do. With a player who's already compromised due to positioning, Burfict is basically just able to completely lay him out. And in my opinion, there is some positive benefits to this if you are someone who's looking for a defensive player. I mean, Mike Mayock said you can't have all Boy Scouts, and I mean, as much as we kind of wish every player was just some nice guy who just wanted to play the game, he is kind of right. I mean, granted, he said that about Richie Incognito, which is, you know, again, they both kind of fall in the same boat there. But for one thing, I kind of do respect Mayock for at least being honest about why he's signing these guys. It is always one of those things that kind of annoys me of the, oh no, I think he's changed, I think he's actually good now. I respect Mayock for saying, hey, we like them because they're good football players. That's it. That's the end of the conversation. And, you know, honestly, I can't really argue with that too much. This video got kind of weird because it kind of got tied into the ethics of the whole situation. But, you know, at the end of the day, at least from an X's and O's standpoint, Burfict will definitely be a valuable piece to that Raiders defense. I know they got a lot of heat for signing Burfict, and I know a lot of people don't like Burfict, so I kind of get it. But again, I say, if Burfict is in the league, then you can't blame teams for wanting to have him on their team. If you want to blame someone, blame the NFL, because either he shouldn't be in the league, or he should be in the league, and any team should be able to go after him. A team's responsibility should be to try to build as talented of a team as possible, and I think this offseason, the Raiders have done a great job at doing just that. But I'd also be interested in hearing what you guys think. Do you guys agree with me about all of the ethics of the situation, or just the fact that he's going to be a talented player? But anyways, sorry if I got a little preachy at any of these moments, because that's not what I want to do at all. I hate when people try to bring like politics or feelings into sports. Sports is supposed to be just about sports, but sometimes it can overlap a little, so you know, sorry if I got a little preachy. But anyways, this was definitely a unique video, and as always, thanks for watching.